Hey people, so here is the second video of the Getting Started with Machine Learning series, taking inputs in Python. So the first thing that will come to your mind is, what are inputs and why do we need to take them? Obvious question, let us answer it. So inputs are nothing but a gateway between the user and the program being executed. So it is a gateway through which they communicate with each other. Let us say that you have a program which sums up two numbers. You have two variables a and b, which you add up to get another variable c, and then you print c as the output. Now if you have a non-programming user who wants to use a program, you cannot tell that user to go through the code and then change the values of a and b according to their needs to get the output c, right? So that is where inputs come in. Inputs, they allow us to help the user use the program as the user wants. So if the user wants to add up 5 and 10, then through inputs, they can just enter 5 for variable A, 10 for variable B, and then their output will be 15, that is C. Alright. So how do we take inputs in Python? So there is a method in Python called the input method or function, which allows us, the programmers, to take inputs from the users. Alright. So let us see how the input method works. So here in the first cell, you can see that I have declared a variable a and I'm initializing it with the function input. Alright, so how does input work? It does nothing but it continuously monitors the input stream for input from the keyboard until the enter key is pressed. So once the enter key is pressed, input will stop looking at the input stream. Alright, so let us run this and see. So let us say I entered 10 and I put enter, and you can see you have entered 10. Alright, now input method has a string argument. As you can see in the second cell, I have entered please enter a number, right? So in the first time when I executed it, I did not enter any string, but when you put some string inside this input method, it prints that particular string before taking the input from the user. So you'll see it here. I execute it, and as you can see, I've written here please enter a number, and in the output it is giving me please enter a number before giving me the text box, right? I'll enter 15 this time, and you have entered 15, right? Very good. Now let us go and see what type of data type input returns. So input always returns a string data type. So here I had entered 10 and 15. It doesn't matter to the input function, it will always return them in the format of string. Alright, so to prove it, let us execute this particular cell. So here I have a variable d which stores the integer 15. Next I'm taking a variable c and I'm taking the input from the user, and I'm adding them both in e is equal to c plus d, and then I'm printing out e. Now if this particular c is a string, then this cell will give me an error. Alright, so let me add 20 to 15, and as you can see there is an error. It tells me type error, must be a string, not int. So what it is telling me is, you have given me c as an integer, d as a string, or the reverse, d as an integer, c as a string, but I cannot work with that. I need both of them to be a string. So please convert d to a string. That's what the compiler is telling me to do. Alright, so how do we deal with cases where you need an integer or a floating point as your input? So that is when typecasting comes in. Typecasting is nothing but converting a particular data type into another data type. Alright, so here as you can see, I have put this statement, this input statement, into the parentheses of integer. So that is typecasting my input to an integer. This is what typecasting is. So let us execute this block of code, and now I'll give it 20, and as you can see, without an error, it has given me the output 35. Right? Now to convert it to float, let us say we have to convert our input to float. We'll do nothing but just enter a float here. Instead of integer, we can enter a float here, and my f is a float already, and let me execute this. Let me give 25, and my output is a floating point number 55.0. right? One last thing I want to add before ending this session is the compatibility between the input data type and the output data type. Now I have an output data type that is integer. Now the compiler must know how to convert the input to an integer. let me give an example to you. Earlier, I had used this typecasting here to convert 20 the string to 20 the int and add it to 50. It worked without any error. Now let us say I execute a similar block of code again, this time to add the number to 20, and instead of 20, I will say give DSC, that is Developer Student Club, and enter it. See, it gives me an error, says invalid literal for int with base 10 DSC. So what it is telling me is, user, you have given me a variable of type string which I cannot convert to an integer. Now 20, no matter what its data type was, it could have been converted to an integer. 20, the string, was easily converted to the integer. But here it is a series of characters DSC. So the compiler does not know how to convert it to an integer. So there is compatibility. The input data type and the output data type should be compatible with each other. Both were strings, but 20 was converted to an integer easily, but DSC cannot. Right? So that's about it with regards to the input method. So we are Developer Student Clubs, Geetham deemed to be university. Do join us in the given link, and there you will be able to follow us and check out all our upcoming events and Q&A sessions. Do drop all your doubts in the comment section. We will answer each and every one of them. Thank you so much.